My name is Cassandra Wells, and I am about to tell you how I discovered the most devastating betrayal imaginable, and how I transformed that pain into the perfect revenge. The silk scarf draped across my sofa was not mine. The perfume lingering in the air was unfamiliar, and the woman's laughter echoing from my guest room upstairs would change everything forever. For 12 years, I believed my marriage to Richard was unshakable. We were the couple everyone envied, successful, wealthy, living in a mansion that graced magazine covers. Richard was everything a woman could want. Charming, accomplished, the kind of man who commanded respect in every room he entered. People looked at us and saw perfection. But perfection, as I would soon learn, can be the most dangerous illusion of all. That October evening started like any other business trip return. I had finished my conference in Chicago 3 days early, eager to surprise my husband. The flight home felt endless as I imagined his shocked expression when I walked through our front door unannounced. I pictured us sharing wine by the fireplace, talking about everything and nothing until dawn. The taxi pulled into our circular driveway at 11:30. Our mansion stood majestically against the dark sky, warm light spilling from several windows. Richard was clearly home. His Mercedes sat in its usual spot. I smiled, fishing my keys from my purse, practically vibrating with excitement. The moment I stepped inside, something felt wrong. The air carried a scent that did not belong, sweet, floral, expensive. Not my perfume. My eyes swept the living room, and that is when I saw it. A wine glass on the marble counter. Just one. Richard never drank alone. My heart began to pound as I noticed more details that screamed wrongness. A silk scarf in deep burgundy lay carelessly draped across our cream sofa. Designer heels kicked off near the stairs, not my size, not my style. A second wine glass sat abandoned on the side table, lipstick staining the rim in a shade I would never wear. My legs felt weak. My hands trembled as I set down my suitcase, the sound echoing through our suddenly foreign home. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to leave, to pretend I had never seen these signs. But I could not move. I could not breathe. And then I heard it. Laughter. Feminine, light, carefree. Coming from upstairs. From our guest room. My heart stopped. Actually stopped. For a moment, I thought I might collapse right there on our marble floor. 12 years of marriage, 12 years of trust, 12 years of believing I knew the man I shared my bed with. All of it crashing down because of a stranger's laughter in my home. I do not remember climbing the stairs. One moment I stood frozen in the foyer, the next I found myself on the second floor landing, my hand gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles had turned white. The guest room door stood slightly ajar, golden light spilling through the crack. More laughter drifted out, followed by Richard's voice, low, intimate, tender in a way he had not spoken to me in years. "You are incredible," he murmured, and the words hit me like physical blows. With trembling fingers, I pushed the door open. The scene before me will haunt me forever. A young woman, she could not have been older than 25, lounged naked across the guest bed like she owned it. Her dark hair fanned across my Egyptian cotton pillows, her bronzed skin glowing in the lamplight. She was beautiful in that effortless way that comes with youth, all smooth curves and confident smiles. She saw me first. Her eyes widened, but she did not scramble to cover herself. Instead, she simply stared, as if my presence in my own home was merely an inconvenience. "Richard," she said softly, her voice carrying a slight accent I could not place. "We have company." My husband turned, and the color drained from his face so completely I thought he might faint. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. He wore nothing but boxer shorts, his hair mussed, his lips swollen from kissing someone who was not his wife. "Cassandra," he breathed, my name sounding like a curse on his tongue. "You are supposed to be in Chicago." Those were his first words to me. Not an apology. Not an explanation. Just surprised that I had caught him. I stood there for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds, taking in every detail. The way her clothes lay scattered across the floor. Expensive pieces I did not recognize but suspected he had bought. The champagne bottle on the nightstand, still half full. The way they both looked at me, not with shame, but with annoyance at being interrupted. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady. The woman laughed. That same carefree sound that had led me upstairs. I am Valentina Moreau, she said, sitting up and making no effort to cover herself. And you must be the wife. The wife. As if I were just some inconvenient detail in their love story. Richard finally found his voice. Cassandra, let me explain. Explain. I cut him off, feeling something cold and hard settle in my chest. Explain what, exactly? That you have been bringing your mistress into our home? That you have been sleeping with her in the bed I bought for our guests? It is not what you think, he said, and I almost laughed at the absurdity of those words. Really? Because what I think is that my husband has been cheating on me with a woman young enough to be his daughter, and he has been doing it under my roof. Valentina stretched like a cat, clearly enjoying the drama. Richard, darling, perhaps you should tell her. Tell me what? I demanded. My husband ran his hands through his hair. A gesture I had once found endearing. Now it made me sick. We have been together for 8 months, he said quietly. And she has been staying here for the past 6 weeks. 6 weeks. While I traveled for work, while I trusted him, while I called him every night to say I loved him. She had been living in my home. Where? I asked. Here. In the guest room. I felt like I was drowning. You moved your mistress into our house? She needed a place to stay, he said defensively. As if that explained everything. Her apartment lease ended, and I could not just dash. Get out, I said. They both stared at me. Both of you. Get out of my house. Now. Richard stepped toward me. Cassandra, please let us talk about this. Now. I screamed, my composure finally cracking. Get your whore out of my house before I call the police. Valentina stood slowly, making a show of collecting her clothes. There is no need for name-calling, she said coolly. We are all adults here. I wanted to kill her. The casual way she dismissed my pain, the way she acted like she belonged here. It took every ounce of self-control I possessed not to launch myself at her. Instead, I watched in silence as she dressed, as Richard threw on clothes with shaking hands. As they gathered their things like this was just another minor inconvenience in their perfect romance. We will talk tomorrow, Richard said as they reached the door. No, I replied. We will not. They left, and I was alone in my violated home, surrounded by the evidence of their betrayal. I sat on my sofa, the same sofa where her scarf had been draped, and tried to process what had just happened. My marriage was over. That much was clear. But as I sat there in the silence, something else began to take shape in my mind. Something cold and calculating and filled with rage. Richard thought he was clever, hiding his affair in plain sight, using my trust against me. He thought I would crumble, that I would cry and beg and eventually forgive him like so many wives before me. He was wrong. I smiled for the first time that night, and it was not a pleasant expression. If he wanted to play games under my roof, I would end the game entirely. But first, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. Over the next few days, I played the part of the devastated wife. I cried when Richard tried to explain. Let him think he was winning me back with his practiced apologies and empty promises. He moved back in after 3 days, swearing that Valentina was gone for good, that their relationship meant nothing. But I was not really listening to his lies. I was planning. Every morning after Richard left for work, I became a detective in my own home. I searched through his belongings, his computer, his phone when he carelessly left it charging in the kitchen. What I found was worse than I had imagined. The affair had been going on for 10 months, not 8 like he claimed. Valentina was not just some random woman. She was a calculated gold digger who had targeted my husband specifically. Their text messages revealed a disturbing pattern of manipulation and greed. But the real shock came when I dug into our finances. Richard had been stealing from his own company to fund their relationship. Hotel suites, jewelry, designer clothes, exotic vacations. All of it paid for with money that did not belong to him. He had embezzled over $200,000 to keep his mistress happy. The evidence was overwhelming. Bank transfers, credit card statements, receipts for gifts and trips. I photographed everything. But I needed more than just proof of the affair. I needed to understand the full scope of his betrayal. I hired a private investigator, a sharp woman named Detective Rivera who specialized in infidelity cases. Within a week, She had uncovered details that made my stomach turn. Valentina was not Richard's first affair. There had been at least 3 others over the past 5 years. All young, all expensive to maintain, all funded with stolen money. My husband was not just unfaithful. He was a serial cheater and a criminal. But Valentina was different. The others had been brief flings, quick affairs that burned out fast. With her, he was planning something permanent. The private investigator showed me emails between them discussing divorce settlements, discussing how much they could expect to get from me in alimony and property division. They were planning to destroy me financially after destroying me emotionally. That was when I realized that exposing the affair would not be enough. I needed to destroy them both completely, the same way they had planned to destroy me. Richard's company, Meridian Holdings, was preparing for the biggest deal in its history, a merger with a European firm that would triple their value overnight. The announcement was scheduled for the annual company gala, a black tie event where Richard would be the star of the evening. Perfect. I spent weeks planning every detail. I collected more evidence, documented every stolen dollar, every lie, every betrayal. I had photographs of them together, recordings of their phone calls, screenshots of their text messages planning my destruction. But evidence alone would not be enough. I needed to present it in a way that would guarantee maximum damage to both their reputations and their futures. The night of the gala, I dressed carefully in a stunning black evening gown. The same dress Richard had complimented just that morning, telling me how proud he was to have me as his wife. The irony was not lost on me. The grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel was packed with the city's elite, business leaders, politicians, socialites, all gathered to witness Richard's moment of triumph. He worked the room like the practiced charmer he was, shaking hands, telling jokes, basking in the admiration of people who had no idea what kind of man he really was. I played my part perfectly, smiling and nodding as people congratulated me on my husband's success, accepting compliments on my dress and my jewelry. Several people commented on how radiant I looked, how happy we seemed together. If only they knew. Richard took the stage at 9:30, looking handsome and confident in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. The crowd quieted as he began his speech about vision and leadership and the bright future ahead for Meridian Holdings. I waited until he was midway through his presentation before I made my move. "Excuse me," I said, standing up from my table near the front. "I am sorry to interrupt, but I have something important to share." Richard's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Ladies and gentlemen, my beautiful wife Cassandra," he said, trying to sound loving and supportive. I walked to the stage, my heels clicking on the marble floor, every eye in the room following my movement. The spotlight felt hot on my skin as I accepted the microphone from my confused husband. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began, my voice steady and clear. "You are here to celebrate my husband's business success, but I think you deserve to know the full truth about how that success was achieved." I could see Richard's face turning pale, but I pressed on. "For the past 10 months, my husband has been stealing money from Meridian Holdings to fund an affair with his mistress." I paused, letting those words sink into the stunned silence. "I have documentation of over $200,000 in embezzled funds, all used to support his relationship with a woman he was hiding in our home." Gasps echoed through the ballroom. I saw board members exchanging horrified looks, investors pulling out their phones, reporters scribbling frantically in their notebooks. "But tonight is not just about exposing a cheating husband," I continued, feeling powerful and terrifying and completely in control. "Tonight is about showing you exactly who Richard Wells really is." I nodded to the hotel's technical crew, who had helped me set up the presentation earlier. The massive screen behind the stage lit up with the first photograph, Richard and Valentina in an intimate embrace at an expensive restaurant. More pictures followed. Hotel receipts for weekend getaways, bank transfers from company accounts, text messages planning their future together, and my destruction. Email exchanges with divorce lawyers discussing how to minimize what I would receive in a settlement. The room was dead silent except for the soft clicking of camera phones as reporters captured every damning image. "My husband did not just betray me," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. "He stole from every employee, every investor, every person who trusted him with their money and their faith. He used your investment to buy jewelry for his mistress. He used company funds for romantic vacations while telling you he was working on this merger. I could see Richard trying to speak, his mouth opening and closing, but no sound came out. Sweat beaded on his forehead as his entire world collapsed around him. The merger you are here to celebrate? I continued. The European firm pulled out 2 days ago when they discovered his embezzlement. There is no deal. There never was. He was planning to announce fake success while stealing whatever money he could before disappearing with his mistress. That was not entirely true. I had made sure the European firm learned about his crimes early. But the effect was exactly what I wanted. Board members were standing up, investors were heading for the exits, and Richard's business partners were staring at him with pure disgust. So please, I said, handing the microphone back to my stunned husband, enjoy the rest of your evening. Consider it a farewell party. I walked off the stage to absolute chaos. People were shouting questions. Reporters were pushing forward. Board members were demanding explanations. Richard stood frozen at the podium, completely destroyed. But I was not finished yet. As I reached the exit, I turned back one final time. "Oh, and Richard?" I called out, my voice carrying clearly through the noise. "Valentina left the country this morning. She took the $50,000 you gave her last week and boarded a plane to Paris. She sends her regards." The look on his face was worth every moment of pain I had endured. I walked out of that hotel with my head held high, leaving behind the ruins of his reputation, his company, and his pathetic attempt at love. By the next morning, the story was front-page news. Richard was facing criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. Meridian Holdings was in chaos, with board members calling for emergency meetings and investors demanding their money back. The SEC opened an investigation that would drag on for months. And me? I filed for divorce that same week, with evidence that guaranteed I would receive everything while he got nothing but legal bills and a destroyed reputation. Richard tried calling me hundreds of times in the days that followed, begging for forgiveness, claiming he had been manipulated, promising to do anything to make things right. I never answered. Valentina, as I had suspected, had indeed fled the country the moment she realized the walls were closing in. She left Richard with nothing but memories and mountains of debt from all the gifts he had bought her with stolen money. 3 months later, Richard was convicted on multiple counts of embezzlement and fraud. He received a 5-year prison sentence and was ordered to pay full restitution to the company and its investors. His assets were frozen, his reputation destroyed, his future ruined. I moved out of our mansion and bought a smaller, more elegant home across town. I kept my maiden name, rebuilt my social circle, and started the consulting firm I had always dreamed of launching. People ask me if I feel guilty about destroying him so completely. They wonder if I should have handled things more privately, more quietly, with less devastation. My answer is always the same. He made his choices. He chose to betray 12 years of marriage. He chose to steal money to fund his affairs. He chose to bring his mistress into our home and plan my financial destruction. He chose to lie to investors and employees and everyone who trusted him. I simply chose not to let him get away with it. 6 months after the trial, I received a letter from him in prison. He wrote about how sorry he was, how he never meant for things to go so far, how losing me was the greatest mistake of his life. He begged me to visit, to give him a chance to explain everything face to face. I never responded to that letter, or the dozens that followed. Some betrayals cannot be forgiven. Some wounds cannot be healed. Some people do not deserve second chances, especially when they have shown you exactly who they are when they think no one is watching. Richard thought he was clever, using my trust and my love against me. He thought I would be just another discarded wife, quietly accepting his version of events while he rode off into the sunset with his young mistress and my money. He was wrong about everything. I am not the same woman who walked into that guest room and found her husband's mistress lounging in her bed. That woman was trusting, forgiving, willing to see the best in people even when they showed her their worst. This woman, the woman I became, is harder, smarter, and utterly ruthless when protecting herself. I learned that sometimes the only way to deal with people who want to destroy you is to destroy them first, more completely and more publicly than they ever imagined possible. Did Richard deserve to lose everything? Absolutely. Did Valentina deserve to have her name plastered across newspapers as a gold-digging mistress who fled the country when things got difficult? Without question. They made their choices. I just made sure those choices had consequences. The guest room where I found them has been converted into my home office now. Sometimes, when I am working late at night, I remember that moment when I pushed open the door and saw my marriage ending in real time. I remember the shock, the pain, the feeling that my entire world was collapsing. But I also remember what came after. The planning, the investigation, the moment I took control of my own story and refused to be a victim. Richard hid his mistress in our home, thinking he could play games with my life, my trust, my future. But I turned their affair into his downfall, and I have never looked back. That is not just my story of betrayal and revenge. It is my story of transformation, of refusing to let someone else write the ending to my life. And it is a story I would live again, exactly the same way, without a moment's hesitation. Because sometimes, the only way to truly move forward is to make sure the people who try to destroy you can never hurt anyone else the same way. My name is Cassandra Wells, and this is how I won. If this story of betrayal, revenge, and ultimate triumph resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of people who refuse to be victims. Your support means everything as we continue sharing these powerful tales of human resilience and justice. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, so you never miss our latest stories of courage, consequence, and redemption.